Hello again, and welcome back to Educator.com's Advanced PHP with MySQL course. In today's lesson, we're going to be learning how we can add data to our database using the SQL insert command. So we're going to learn about the syntax of the SQL insert command, which is used to add data to a database. We're going to learn about how to specify values that we want to insert into a database. For example, when we insert strings into a database, we have to enclose them in quotation marks. So we're going to learn about some rules for doing that. We're going to learn how to, we're going to walk through the process of actually populating our items table that we created in our last lesson with the sort of default items we've had in our store. In our web application, we've had sort of 6 items that we've had through all of our web application examples that we've added, that we've had in the store, and we're going to go ahead and add all those using insert statements. We're going to talk about how you can have a bunch of SQL commands or SQL statements in text files, and then you can actually just sort of, in a way, import that text file into the MySQL monitor, and it'll run all the commands for you. And then we're going to go over another required homework that's going to have you to set up the items table by populating it with the sort of those default 6 items that we've had in our web store application. So as mentioned, the insert command is used to insert rows into a table in a database. It has the syntax defined here. Basically, it has 2 keywords: insert into, followed by the table name. So you'd say like insert into items, for example. And that's going to say we're going to be inserting data into the items table. And then what you do is you can specify the names of the columns that you're going to be providing data for. So you name the different columns. For example, you might say item ID, name, and price. Then you have the keyword values, and then within parentheses you specify the different values that you want to correspond to the different columns you've listed. So the first value would correspond to whatever column name you've defined here. The second would go to this name here, and then so on. And you can do that for as many columns as you need. There's also sort of a shorter syntax where you can leave out the column names, this section here, and have a command that would just be insert into items, for example. And then instead of having this column definition, you would just say values. And here I'm just putting them on separate lines, but they don't need to be just for readability. And then you would just specify the values. Now the thing to note about that is that, and this was mentioned in the last lesson, is when you create a table and you use a create table command, you specify columns in a particular order. Well, that sets up basically the structure of that table and how those columns are ordered. So if you're going to be using this form of the insert into, or the insert command, without specifying the column names here, and you're just specifying values, you have to specify the values according to how those columns are ordered in the table definition. So for columns with numeric data types, for example our price column, you simply specify the literal value that you want to insert into the database without quotation marks. So if we wanted to set a price to $15, we would just type 15.00. For columns with string data types, however, for example a car data type, a varchar, and a text data type, you have to surround them by quotation marks, either single quotes or double quotes. And just as in our PHP strings, if your string that you're inserting into the database actually contains one of those quote characters itself, you must explicitly escape it using the escape sequence / single quote to add a single quote to the string, or / double quote to add a double quote to your string. Another important thing is for columns that have the auto increment attribute set, which for our items table is the item ID column, because we want it to generate a new item ID automatically every time we add an item to the table. What you do is when you provide a value in the insert statement for that particular column, if you provided a value of null or you provided a value of 0, then MySQL is going to know to go ahead and auto generate that new item ID, in this case a new item ID, to whatever the next value in the table is. So you specify null or 0 to do that. Alternatively, you can also explicitly set the value for an auto increment column by actually giving it a particular value. You can actually, for example, if this was our column definition, insert into, and we said item ID was the column, values, say we're just inserting one column, we could explicitly put 1001. And that way it wouldn't do the auto increment feature, it would set it to the value explicitly specified.